what is it? It's Saturday, January the 31st, and I'm gonna have to tune that down real quick. Yeah, let me turn that down some, man. Anyway, what's up? It's your boy Talk Williams, host and creator, Hip Hop 50th. And yes, it is, as I said, or as the calendar says, Saturday. And we all agree, I guess, January the 31st. Yeah. If you're an OG, if you over 55, let me say that. I'm trying to think where it kicks in, where years turns into just seasons, you know, as a shorty, as a kid, we was like, your parents say, well, wait till this summer or wait till next year or in a couple months, we'll do it in a couple months. And you start crying and bawling out and you don't understand it because our concept of time, and come to find out, a lot of it is personality based also, right? So it's our persona, whatever our persona might be, is now. I don't want to go to the playground when it stopped raining. I want to go to the playground either before it's raining or while it's raining. Okay, the thunder and lightning can happen after I finish playing. Excuse me. So the concept or the idea of time, that's why, when you get older, you buy into these cliches or you come up with one yourself about how time is elusive. It is. I was just talking to my sister last night and or one of these days this week, and I was like, the month is gone. And she was like, I know. And we went into some personal things too regarding time, loss and different things like that, love and people that's important to us. But, when you're young, that's what it is. And then when you get like, I don't know if it's in the teenager years or in the 20s or the 30, early 30s or before you get 30, time is whatever you want it to be. It's like you almost control the time. It can happen now, it can happen later, but it's going to happen for me. It's all about you. And at some point through the 35s and 40s or whatever, I'm just trying to pin, I think after about 55 or 57, that's where all of a sudden, like a roller coaster ride, and you come over that hump and you start coming down. And initially when you're coming down, you're not coming down as fast. Gravity is not pulling as much. But as it goes over and it goes down, the pull of gravity, that inertia, that force that's pulling, and then that velocity increases. And I don't mean to sound like I finished school because I didn't, but time literally flies. Yeah, I know. Yeah, look, when I'm talking to you guys, rarely do I write notes and plan and all of that. I should. I'm just telling you, I don't. That's what I'm telling you. The stuff I be saying just be off the dome. I just be tripping. It just be my anecdotal, visceral way, empirical way of communicating. But yeah, I said all of that to say the year just ended and we at the end of the month. And it's at the blink of the eye if you're over 55. That's what I'm telling you. Like, if you getting them AARP magazines, like if you 57 or more, don't act like you don't know what I'm saying. Don't even act like it. Don't do it. The month of January was like 10 days because we don't measure time by necessarily the hours and the days and different things like that. Yeah, we do it for scheduling purposes. We do it we do it semantically, meaning we do it as a way of a measure to communicate and be on accord with whatever is going on in our so-called daily lives. But biologically, like, we're not doing days like that no more. The same way a baby wouldn't do days. The experience is totally different. What it takes is nothing. If someone tells somebody that's over 55 that I'm going to holler at you in the next couple weeks, they be like, yeah, all right, cool, holler at me in a couple weeks. And they good. They comfortable with most situations. But if somebody tells somebody that's in their 20s, I'll holler at you in a couple weeks, depending on what that is or the context of it, you just broke up with your woman or she just broke up with you. You just moved on with your life. Because the understanding and the concept of what 2 weeks is and how meaningful it could be to somebody is different depending on where you are in your life. That's what it is. So, that's why I tell my nephews, I was joking with them the other night, and I said, you'll be 50 in 5 minutes. And I said that probably when they was 23 or something. And so the other night I told one of them, I said, you'll be 65 in 5 minutes. And they laughed. They kind of get it now. Why? Because they're in their fucking 40s. They're approaching 50, a couple of them, right? They in their 40s, early 40s, late 40s, whatever like that. It's the same way with my daughters. It doesn't matter. They kind of get it now. They starting to see a glimmer of this thing called time and how all of a sudden, months ain't your enemy no more. Waiting until next year and doing it this summer, and I can't wait till the winter is over, start to make sense. Because what we start doing is time becomes a series of events. Unfortunately, some very sad events during that year. But that's what it becomes. It becomes events. It becomes seasonal changes. It's measured by relationships. You experience time by how you might be feeling, what you might be going through. The days is just over. The hours only exist to clock you at work or know what time your grandkids get home or know what time you got to take your medication, whatever that situation is. That's what it is. It's different. The idea of time, when you talk to different people with different age, it just ain't the same. So when I'm saying to younger people, have a little patience. I was talking to my grandson yesterday, and he texted me, and he said, I ain't talked to you in a while. He said 7 weeks. We know that's not true, but he said 7 weeks, which was fine. But anyway, I talked to him. And I have to remind myself when I'm talking to somebody in their 20s, their early 20s, about patience, about empathy. It's like about forgiveness, about life, right? I have to remind myself they haven't been living long enough. So the things that I say, I'm just dropping jewels to embed in them, and then at some later date, some later year, some later generation, as they live, something kicks in and something else makes sense to them. And here go my disclaimer, and I'll stop this with this time thing. There is a book, though, called Meditations, and there's also a piece in there about time. It's by Marcus Aurelius, who was a general emperor. He was like top dog doing one of the Roman runs, the Roman eras, right? And Marcus Aurelius, we're talking about 360 BC or something like that. That's how far we going back. He didn't write it himself because he didn't really write books or literature. He took notes and he wrote journals, and then after he passed away, they wrote some stuff. And Marcus Aurelius is one of the top 3 Stoics that people talk about when you talk about schools of philosophies or philosophical thought about Stoicism, different things like that, where you just most people who consider themselves Stoic. Like you might see somebody and they say, well, how was his attitude? And they say he was Stoic. It typically means he was laid back, he was cool, he didn't get excited, even though he was facing something. Well, that's how it's what's called the semantic shift. It's morphed into that. But typically, Stoicism is when one of the principles is you focus on what you can control, what you can influence, what actions you can take, not what you cannot. So in other words, I cannot control what people do or say to me. I have some say over my response based on how I process it. But anyway, I know I'm scatterbrained, right? But it is a piece in there about time, the illusion of time, the elusiveness of time that he's associated with. To the point of this. I was talking to one of my nephews, and he was telling me, he told me, he said, Uncle Ty, man, I think back, I kind of wish or regret, I'm paraphrasing, he may not have said wish, he may not have said regret, he may not have said any of that. But he said to me, I kind of think back and, maybe I should have got into that tech stuff, that technology stuff with you or whatever, some reference to something I'm doing. And I told him, I said, nephew, when I got my first job, like job, J-O-B, that you guys been working forever? And he says, when? I said, when I was 43. 43. Yeah. When I was 43. Because everything before then was short stints with a temp agency here, not working for years, a temp agency here, not working for years, repeat. Wanting a skill set, not having this skill set, acting like I had a skill set, not really having this skill set, acting like I was smart, I knew I wasn't smart, acting like I went to school, I know I didn't go to school. And at 43, I got this job. It was a real job. Real job. Yeah, real job. And so I said to my nephew, don't think about me in that way. No, 43. So I said to my nephew, how old are you now? And my nephew said, 43. My nephew said 43. Both of us started laughing. We had to laugh. And I was saying to him, there you go. That's what I said to him. There you go. Because there's no button. There's just no button. There's no letter in the mail. There's no email. There's no text you can get. I get it. God talked to me last night. Excusing that. Listen, I can't speak on God talking to people last night and then they wake up and the rest of their life is different. I can't speak on that. If there's a heaven, I'm not going there no way. All right? So I can't speak on that. I'm not authority to speak on that. So minus God talking to you last night, right? And you wake up and everything's changed and everything's different. Minus that, I was telling my nephew, like, this is a process. This is a process. I got a stomach, right? Yeah, a stomach, like a fat stomach. Do you think I could get that fat stomach in one night? No, I can't. Talk, you can't get it in one night? No. I had to work on getting my stomach the way it is, where you don't see no muscles, where the water will roll down because it's a slope going, and then after it's over the slope, it pick up speed. It's a process. It's not a button. Everything is a process. And it takes some commitment. What you mean? To get your stomach like that, take commitment, Todd? Oh, I had to make sure I don't exercise. I had to limit any sit-ups I do to just sitting up out of bed or sitting up in the chair. So you have to limit your sit-up routine to just sitting up in bed and sitting up in the chair. Avoid gyms. Eat food that eventually deposit high levels of cortisone in your gut. But it's a process. You can't go buy it. You can't do it overnight. You can't order it from Uber Eats. They can't deliver it. It's a process. Everything's a process. So I'm saying that. I didn't say that part to my nephew. I'm saying this to you guys. So back to my nephew, I was saying to my nephew, you have to just figure out what that is for you and do it. Because I was telling my nephew, I was talking to him and his brother. Him and his brother was in the car together a couple weeks ago. I was talking to my other nephew last night. And I was telling him, this was just last night, I was talking to my other nephew, which is his brother. I said, look, a couple weeks ago, I was talking to you and your brother, y'all was in the car, right? He was like, yeah. I said, I thought to myself, how much IQ is in that car? You know, because both of them, as kids, coming through school, everything, and is documented, they have high IQs. Very high IQs. They're smart. They have that. That was part of their gift. They're not savants. No, they're not savants. They're not gonna build Facebook yesterday or even now we got Moltbot, which was Crawlbot a couple weeks ago. But don't worry about that. That's a whole nother different subject. Yeah, it's don't even worry about it. But anyway, they're not gonna build that tomorrow. But I'm talking about the schools recognize, teachers recognize, the systems recognize, so they were both part of some way of pushing them through or realizing them how their gift. High IQ. Now, they both are from my brother, but they have different mothers, which is kind of proof of concept there. My brother, he was the same way. That's why when people tell me, Talk, man, you smart, man, you always been smart. I said, yo, trust me, I'm not smart. I know what smart looks like. I had two motherfucking brothers. Them niggas is what you call smart. They smart. They had the shit when nobody was checking to see if you had the shit. And it was showing up in their grades. Elementary school, junior high school, getting skipped in class and all that shit. Yeah. But my nephews, dumb they smart. They gifted. And I thought about it after I got off the phone with them a couple weeks ago, because they was both in the car together and we was talking. And I said, man, all that intelligent quotients in that one vehicle. That's how I thought about that. Because that's what I think about them. Now, do we have other people in our family that's smart? Sure we do. Do I have kids that are smart? Sure I do. But I'm talking about the systems knew they were smart. That's a different recognition, all right? But anyway, I was saying to my nephew that at 43, you have so much with you already you could go in a different direction. You may have to do whatever you're doing now to maintain and survive and provide. Continue that, but make time and do the other part. Work on the direction you want to go while you continue to be fluent and aggressive in where you currently are. But work on the other part. Now, that was that. That was that. But what I'm saying to you guys is, you might be 40, you might be 35, you might be 50, and you don't enjoy what you do anymore. It either doesn't pay enough or it's not rewarding in some other way. Because they did do studies, and what they find out is people don't stay at jobs later in their years because how much it pays. They stay because they enjoy the work, and pay becomes second. You have to ask yourself, like you already know, but I'm just saying you have to ideally ask yourself. You know, when you go in the mirror, when you think about it, you don't even enjoy what you do. You really maybe never gave yourself an opportunity, you never created an opportunity or gave yourself a chance to do something else, because you wind up doing what you're doing now by default of other life situations and conditions and decisions. A lot of it, we young, we think we making decisions, we not. The conditions are set, and we wind up down this path in the maze, and we think we choosing the doors, and we not. So half of it is us, part of it is we think it's of us, the other part, it just ain't on you. But it's not too late. Now, where does the time come? This is the conundrum, the snafu. And the reason why I'm trying to think of these words that are real words, conundrum, snafu, they have meaning, but the reason why I'm thinking of these less used terms to make my point of the congestion and the intersection and the struggle and being stopped or stymied by what the traffic of the mind is because most people, you have the time. You do. You have the time. This idea that I want to work on something else, and Talk, you and the world, y'all just don't understand. I don't know where that time. Where could I get that time? How could I work on that other thing I want to do? Where do I get that time? Well, are you a football fan? Yeah, I'm a football fan. All right, so who's your squad? I got a nephew. His squad is the Chargers. I got another nephew. His squad is the Ravens. I got another nephew. I don't know who his squad is, but I'm just saying I got nephews, right? They got teams. And you ask them, how many games out of a NFL season do you watch? And they watch the season for the most part. And how long is it typically a game? 4 hours, 3 hours. And do you get together an hour before the game, hang out after the game? Do you eat? Do you, converge with each other, congregate, communicate, engage, whatever? Yeah, we do it. Boom, boom. I know you do, but I was just saying. Well, how many weeks is a season? 16 or 18 weeks. Let's put it at 16. So if you take 16 weeks, divide 16 weeks by 4 weeks, because it's 4 weeks in a month. That's 4 months. 4 months of probably 12 hours a week watching games or spending time with people before and after the game. On off game days, spending time reading up on the game, scrolling and swiping through, watching the replays. So probably 15 or 20 hours for 16 weeks straight because you're an NFL fan. That's 20 hours. I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to allow room for lies to be told. Like, people are lying and all that. So 15 hours for 16 weeks. Well, 15 times 15 is 225. We're talking about over 230 hours in a 4-month period, not in a year. pardon me. Pardon me. Not in a year, in 4 months. You're talking about more time in 4 months spent on football, watching the games, spending money, hanging out, the budget that comes with it, the food, the weed, the women, the gear, the food, the weed, the women. The gear probably lasts through the season, but you got to swap the women out, and you got to get the weed because you smoke it. That's perishable. Maybe some liquor is not as perishable because maybe you don't become an alcoholic before the season out. So that's whatever. But think about all that time. And you're standing somewhere, and I'm not talking about my nephews now. I'm saying this to everyone. Because this, I'm not saying my nephews do this. I'm just using them as good examples for this. And you're standing somewhere thinking to yourself, man, I need to figure out how I'm going to do this. That's the conundrum. That's the snafu of thinking, of the thoughts. That's where I can't help you. Talk can't help you with that. Why? Because you're standing here with 230 hours, damn near 250 hours of time you could just decide to do something different with that don't affect your bills, don't affect your education. In other words, it doesn't reduce your quality of life. And you could lend that time, or half of it, 125 hours in 4 months, to the path that you're on. Your focus, your commitment, your willingness, your earnest, your gird up and do it. You ain't gonna do it though. That's why I say to people, smart ain't got nothing to do with it. Now this is what I did tell my nephew, one of my nephews. I'm not smart. No, I never was. I've never had report cards that were impressive, even up to the 7th grade. I was always DC, D. You know, I was like electricity, direct current. D's and C's. But see, I know how to be on something, though. I do know how to do that. I know how to be on. I know how to focus. I do have that. I wasn't gifted with high IQ, ability of pattern recognition beyond the normal. I wasn't that. Fine. But I developed and I realized how I learned, and then I just focus. That's it. Consistency. That's it. That focus, consistency, that, developing that, going at it, scaling your way up, upskilling, going after it when it's not required, focusing and learning and indulging and engaging and inquiring and questioning and meeting people and networking outside of what the job requires. All of us do it, we just do it in different areas. We all do it. It's just different domains, different spaces. That I use as to my advantage to offset my low IQ. I use that to my advantage to offset me not finishing school. You know how many people that we know finished school? They did. They went to high school, they went to college, they went to blah, blah, blah. But you know who you find many times good with their careers? People that were consistent and focused. They didn't have to have all the rest of the stuff, because what happens is this. If you about that what you into and you go at it accordingly, in a couple years, they could sit you next to the person with the degree, and nobody's going to be able to tell who has the degree and who doesn't. Your work will look just like the person with the degree, if not better. You will be producing at the same level, if not better. So, if you in your 40s and you know you smarter than, or you more gifted than, or you have a desire to do something different than what you've been doing, continue to do what you're doing. And trust me, if you be honest with yourself, you have more than enough time to work on that other stuff. I could go through a litany of things that we do. The time is right there. It's the same way with money. We could, if we felt like being honest, like once you get in the mood where you don't feel like lying to yourself and other people, even with money, you could think about what you do with money and give yourself a raise. Don't that sound crazy? But it's true. If you account what you do with money, you could literally give yourself a raise. If you making $20 an hour, if you literally take lunch to work, I'm gonna sound old, I'm gonna sound archaic, I'm gonna sound whatever they say you are when you sound this way. That's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But I'm gonna say it. If you take lunch to work, you know how much money you would save taking lunch to work? When I'm talking to people, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking about what I apply to myself. You can always give yourself a raise before your employer. You can always give yourself a raise before any of your clients give you more money. You can always give yourself a raise just by changes in behavior. You can give yourself a raise, especially if you start with food. First of all, there's no food on the street that tastes better than the food probably you cook or your wife cooks. For most people, I'm single. I don't have a wife that cooks for me, but I know when females do cook for me, there's no food on the street that I enjoy better than somebody cooking for me, because I eat with the thought of what that person did and the time that they spent in doing so. I eat with that thinking. I do. Especially when it tastes good. If it passed the taste test, then I'm eating with the idea that this person spent time. Whatever. Now, it's probably with my money. That's not a problem. But this person, this is where the skill set lies. All I'm saying is change. It's not going to be comfortable. It's just going to be necessary. You ever was in a relationship and you remember when the guy told you, put you out? Or for men, the woman put you out? And you was like, man, that's messed up, man. She treated me like that. Oh, that's messed up. He treated me like that. And then 6 months later, it was the best fucking thing that ever fucking happened. I remember shaking a nigga's hand after the relationship I was in. That relationship, got out of that relationship blew up, got out of it, and man, when she showed up with the new guy, I shook his hand. Now, of course, he didn't know why I was so respectful and, just being a guy. he probably looked at me like a little bitch or something. Like this bitch ass nigga shaking my hand and introducing himself and, just having small conversations. I didn't care. I shook his hand because I said, I was shaking his hand, and in my mind, I was like, man, you don't even know how happy I am to be out of that shit. But it was uncomfortable because I didn't think I wanted to be out of it. And I wasn't willing to be out of it until things just got to the point where I was put out of it. So I know that we don't welcome these changes. We just don't. And for you God-fearing people, and God got something for you, and he talked to you last night, you know this more than anybody. The change is uncomfortable but necessary. The change is hard, it's disheartening. It make you cry. But then you find out how welcomed it is later on, how needed it is, or was, or whatever. Give yourself another opportunity. You know you want to. That's what I would say. Give yourself the opportunity that nobody's going to give it to you. I know you surrounded around loved ones and she crazy about you and he crazy about you. They not going to wake up and say, go get it. They not. You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to get away from this idea of being too short, too fat, too dark, too light, too uneducated, too whatever. Just get away from that. And do what you do to take care of yourself or your family and your family. And do what you do and start incorporating slowly but surely that other direction you want to go.